I know he was a big Brewers fan. We got to chat some baseball for a second because I really feel like Brewers came into the postseason with the best record in all of baseball, but you're not necessarily as high on them. I'm going to make a parallel to Texas A&M, but you're not necessarily as high on the Brewers going into this year.
Yeah, I think it's just more of it's my history of being let down whenever I have high hopes about the Brewers. So maybe if I try a different approach this year, some different outcome will happen. I'm very superstitious like that. So as I'm sure you were
Oh yeah,
before the Cubbies made their run. So
absolutely, absolutely. I wore this shirt. There's a reason why I'm wearing it today. I wore this shirt, but I got it in 2017. I've worn different shirts, but this is the one that happened when the championship happened, and
mhm.
literally I haven't put it on in 5 years. And so like every year I'm just like, okay, you know what? Maybe next year, maybe next year. The reason why I was asking that is because right before you came on, we had a segment we were talking about Auburn and Texas A&M, and one of the big things that Patrick has been saying is maybe echoing some of the fan base out there at Texas A&M where it feels good right now, but it's almost cautiously optimistic going into each week, and it just feels like, oh well, a shoe can drop here, which would lead to other destruction. Outside of what you've seen, maybe in the first 3 to 4 games on defense, because it feels a little sputtery, what's your take right now of Texas A&M as a whole? Because it looks like all the things you could ask a team to do: win all their games, stay undefeated, and be 1-0 in the SEC. They've done.
Yeah, I think they've controlled what they could control, and that's the biggest thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they did that last year too. They started, I think it was 5-0 last year, and
Mm-hmm.
then go into that brutal slate of SEC play, and those losses start to pile up. So I don't think anybody in Aggie land is content right now, but they're certainly happy at the start. You know, you pitch that schedule at the beginning of the season to anybody, and you'd say, oh, maybe you take one loss in those first 4 games to Notre Dame or Auburn, but they haven't done that, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a positive side in Aggieland. They're definitely not taking their foot off the gas though.
Absolutely. I got to talk about that defense because the defense in South Bend obviously gave up a lot of points, but it feels like
Mm-hmm.
they've been able to correct it. And some of this might be Auburn's ineptitude on offense, but I feel like a lot of this was, hey, they were able to get to the quarterback, and Jackson Arnold sacked him 5 times. What do you make of that defense and just how strong they could be moving forward?
I think they really answered the call this past weekend, and that's something that they were a little skeptical of, right? Jackson Arnold's running ability, Auburn's rushing attack, just heading into the week, it was, can we stop this? Can we limit them? But only 60 yards, less than 60 yards rushing for Auburn in that game, I think was the biggest takeaway from this defense. And then also, getting pressure on Jackson Arnold, making him make plays was their biggest emphasis. And they took that away. And then once that was done, this Aggies defense was rolling. I mean, the Aggies defense gave some major juice to the 12th man
Mm-hmm.
on Saturday. That they really went hand in hand there, and you saw a win because of it.
Absolutely. From a stat standpoint, Marcel Reed had a really, really strong start, and he had some great weapons there on the outside. What do you make of where the offense is right now? Obviously, not the output that they might have wanted from a
Mm-hmm.
scoreboard perspective, but like you said, they got the win. Where is the offense right now through 5 games?
I think the offense is doing pretty well. Obviously, like you said, not the output that they would have wanted. You have
Mm-hmm.
414 yards of offense, but only 16 points to show for it, and only one touchdown to show
Right.
from it, which came in the first drive with Le'Veon Moss. I think that first drive looked like a well-oiled machine. You're like, they might put up 50 on Auburn, and then
Yeah.
just kind of a stalemate from that point. So Marcel addressed it after the game. He said it wasn't my best showing. They kind of shot themselves in the foot. 13 penalties, a lot of those coming in the red zone, so then it would back them up and it would just kind of halt the drive right where it was and then force them to kick a field goal. So I think that's the main emphasis heading into this week is, if this is going to be a team that goes to the college football playoff and competes for a national championship, they can't be having false starts
Mm-hmm.
and late hits and just all those different penalties that just kill a football team. And Mike Elko was not happy about it after the game.
Absolutely. Mike Elko during the bye week talked to the Houston Touchdown Club. He was telling everybody, hey, believe in us. Get fired up for what we're doing offensively. We got a chance to hear from him after starting 4-0.
Does anybody want to ask a question about like us being 4-0 for the first time since 2016, or how did the defense bounce back, or how about you held for the first?
Coach to the right, Christy.
Does anybody want to ask a question about like us being 4-0 for the first time since 2016, or how did the defense bounce back, or how about you held them to 176 yards on offense and you had 5 sacks and they were 0 for 12 on third down and 0 for 2 on fourth down and you got the return game going again? Like, I don't mean to sound like someone else, but my gosh, will you guys stop being so dreadful and gloomy?
Will you guys stop being so dreadful and gloomy?
I think that he's trying to rally a fan base that, like you said, that maybe have some reservations. I used to have a football coach. As a quick aside, I used to have a football coach. Whenever we would like go to the stands, go to the crowd, and we would do this, he'd tell us, stop doing that. Give them something to root for. Give them something to cheer for. Don't tell them to cheer. Go out in the field and make it happen. I feel like Mike Elko is walking this fine line of like, hey, be excited for where we are present moment right now because our team is executing the way we should.
Yeah, I think he's always kind of let his players, pander to the audience, pander to the crowd at Kyle Field. And once the players do get the crowd fired up, it's a tough place to play. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand like that. But yeah, when he kind of teed off on the media there for being doom and gloom on Saturday, we were all kind of like, are we being too negative, too critical about this program?
Right.
But that's the kind of job that he took. He took a job that has all these expectations on him. So you do have to answer some of that doom and gloom. And I think, he even said, I'm not trying to be somebody else. This isn't me that just, tease off on media, but I'd appreciate it if you asked some positives about what happened today. And I think there were some positives, but also, some glaring negatives that have to be asked.
Absolutely. Yeah, you turn on the film now and you turn the page over to Mississippi State. This is one thing is true, Parker, that this is not the same Mississippi State football team as it was a year ago, where they were winless in the SEC and only 2 wins overall. They came into that Tennessee game feeling really good about themselves and then took Tennessee to overtime. What's the messaging this week after you got a big win over Auburn and now Mississippi State, who's coming in hungry for an SEC win?
Well, us in Central Texas know quite a lot about Mississippi State's quarterback under center, Blake Shapen,
right.
Coming over from Baylor in Waco. Trading places with Sawyer Robertson, basically. But I think Mississippi State seems kind of like that giant killer this year, right? Yeah. And we thought when they were leading Tennessee, maybe this could be another big win for them. I think that's kind of how Texas A&M should treat this game, right? They can't overlook Mississippi State because they've already almost pulled off an upset last week. I just think it does not shape up super well for like a team that you could overlook and could go into it thinking, we just beat Auburn. That's probably a more high-profile SEC team. So I think they're not taking it for sure.
How big is it having that game there in College Station and just being able to have that 12th man again? Because we saw how things can get a little murky there in Starkville, but having that game at home, how important is that?
Yeah, I think a night game at Kyle Field, that just adds a whole nother level of this game. And we saw a night game at Kyle Field last year with LSU, a big SEC matchup, and A&M really used that to their advantage and just steamrolled the Tigers in the second half. So I think that's going to give them an extra edge in this game. But, ultimately, again, it just comes down to how they play. And I think they're ready on both sides of the ball for the first time all season. I'm going to be interested to see how they could put both of those together. And, maybe this will be a route. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. A quarterback's best friend is an excellent. John Moss has been absolutely outstanding. What do you make of his early impressions so far and just the way he's able to help balance out this offense, given the great receivers, Concepcion and all those other guys on the outside, to be able to have a true running threat in the SEC?
Yeah, that running back room is stellar, to say the least. And you see the stats right here, a career high for Le'Veon Moss. And that start you would have hoped that maybe he would have had a couple more long runs, but I think Aggie fans are really pretty good with the stat line that he put up last Saturday. It's good to have him back. He suffered that leg injury, that season-ending leg injury last year. Really took until fall camp to say he felt fully back to himself. And I think we saw last Saturday exactly what he was talking about. This is the same Le'Veon Moss we saw last year that was leading the SEC in rushing before he went down with that injury. I think it's a great sign for the maroon and white. And then you also have two running backs in Reuben Owens and Amari Daniels, who are kind of 1A, 1B, 1C kind of guys in that running back room. So that's what the Aggies pride themselves on, is their rushing attack. And if they can get that going, they're a scary team.
Absolutely. I want to get your take on kind of a big picture topic in the SEC. We had the first firing of an SEC head coach earlier this week as Sam Pittman let go there at Arkansas. As far as what you make, obviously Texas A&M and Arkansas, this would be a game that we'll see throughout a course of time for a really long time. What do you make of what that job has become, and some of the guys that might be able to step in there for Arkansas as they move forward?
Yeah, I have seen a couple reports that Arkansas has been targeting SMU's coach, but that's just not, but I've seen other people say that's a better job right now than Arkansas, which normally you wouldn't expect that as an SEC program. But I think it's difficult in this modern day, and honestly similar to what Mizzou was. I'm a Mizzou alum, so it was what Mizzou was back then with Barry Odom, and just not really having the resources dedicated to it to compete at the SEC level to be one of those top tier programs. Then you start getting those resources flowing in. So I think there's kind of a wake-up call for Arkansas to say, are we going to dedicate more resources to this football program to make it a powerhouse? Because they've always had the talent to be there. It's just not at the same level. And I think that's kind of what they realized eventually. But I don't know. I think a lot of people have high regard for Sam Pittman, but I don't know that it just panned out for him there. So maybe he goes somewhere else and wins. I don't know. But first firing, definitely going to draw some headlines.
Two quick things before we get you out of here. As a Mizzou alum, I was telling Patrick, Mizzou is the most underrated team in the SEC right now. And I know that their resume isn't the best looking thing ever as far as the teams they've played, but they do what good teams do, and they really beat down bad teams. What do you make of the Tigers so far with Coach Drink?
In every statistical categorry, they really have been incredible this year. And then you lose your starting quarterback too at the beginning of the season, the first play, and Bo Prabula has come in just guns a-blazing. And Ahmad Hardy, that guy is he might be a Heisman hopeful. I think he is incredible, and kind of an ode to Cody Schrader from years past with Brady Cook. It feels like those two are a 1-2 punch, and they just get everything that they need to get done. And that'll be a big game. They actually have a game coming up against Alabama. That'll be their next game after the bye week. Feels really similar to last year's Texas A&M game, which they came to Kyle Field. But this time, Mizzou goes and plays Alabama. I think they'll be a little bit more prepared than they were when they came to Kyle Field, because the Aggies certainly did not take it easy on them last year.
Absolutely. Last thing. When we started this conversation, the Cubs were down 1-0, and now we're up 2-1 on a Suzuki home run and a Carson Kelly home run. So really, nice. I want to keep you on. I'm a supersticious guy. I want to keep you on for the entire show because I want to blow them out. But no, sincerely, Parker, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to your brew crew. Not really, but sort of. I feel like it's a nice thing to say as you go.
Yeah. I'll say best of luck to the Cubs today, and hopefully I did my best to give them some runs, and we'll see if they can keep that lead that I built up.
Parker, thanks for doing the job against the Reds. Mets.
He's a Mets fan, so it's been a couple of down days for him.
I threw some money down on the Reds winning on Sunday because, I was like, all right, the Brewers have the number 1 seed locked up. They're going to throw Peralta for 2 innings, and then they're just going to sit everyone. And then they beat the Reds. So I felt a little silly on that. After I saw that, I was like, yes, the Brewers won. And then the Mets were down 4-0, and they score 0 runs in an elimination game.
And they ended up losing.
Baseball's a fickle thing,
really
Patrick.
is.
I really can't. Yeah, you just can't decide it.
Parker, you're the best, man. We certainly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys.